Hello and welcome to the department's fourth webinar regarding COVID. I hope that this webinar finds you well and that you are trying to manage the best you can given the situation is so fluid. So we're going to jump right into things, but again, I want to give my thanks to all of you. You have been handling this just champs, and it's been recognized. I know it is a very difficult time, but thank you for the support and thank you for everything you're doing at the local level. So as a reminder, at the bottom of your screen, you have IDOE COVID-19 at doe.in.gov. That is being used quite frequently, but it still needs to be used for frequently asked questions that are coming in for the field. We are trying to get back to you as timely as we can. We're also using that to craft our frequently asked questions and update it, and also those trending questions that we're getting the most traction on, trying to make sure that you all have consistent and timely answers to those questions. So continue to use that at the bottom of your screen. So the first thing we're going to touch on again are the waiver days. So the governor's executive order addressed the waiver days and basically where we are now. So waiver days you must continue to provide instruction via remote learning until you either hit 160 days or you have at least 20 instructional days in, however you define that looks like, between April 2nd and June 30th. Why June 30th and not at the end of your calendar year? So June 30th is actually the end, as defined by state, the end of a school year. So you have a little bit of wiggle room to get those 20 days in. I know all of you out there are thinking, are you crazy lady? There's no way we're doing that. But you have a little bit of a runway here to get those 20 days in. And again, how those 20 days look for remote learning are locally defined. So 160 days, or the 20 days in between that time period. You will have to report those on your calendar report. In the past, superintendents and your central office folks will know those calendar reports were due at the end of the school year per se. Now you're going to be doing those weekly so we can capture information. The weekly part of that is going to be responsible for, the traditional schools will be responsible to do that, your charter schools, and eligible choice. So for some of our schools, that's new to have to report anything, but it's new. So for reporting purposes, make sure that you are staying on top of it. That weekly report is extremely important. If you have questions, we will be happy to help you. But again, that goes to traditional public schools, charter schools, and eligible choice schools. At the end, we will be looking at that calendar report to make sure that it jives with what you submit in your continuous learning plan, which we will talk about. Also, we chase a lot. I'm going to be honest with you. So what I don't want to do is chase all of our traditional public schools, the charters, and the eligible choice schools every week to get your weekly report. So please do what you can on your end to ensure that that is getting done in a timely manner. I understand you are short people. I understand your capacity is what it is. It's one time a week, and if you have trouble because of how you are staffed, let us know and we will try to get you the assistance and try to help you with how to figure that out, or we can get you in touch with a peer to help you try to figure that out. So calendar report is extremely important. As a reminder, the calendar report has to align with your continuous learning plan. So in order to explain that continuous learning plan that was in the executive order that was obviously approved by Governor Holcomb, it talked about you have to have a plan to go with those 160 days or those 20 days that we just talked about. So Robin LeClaire on our team has been getting a ton of questions, so we're going to try to help you out with some of that regarding the continuous learning plan. So with us today, Robin LeClaire.
Good morning, and I'm glad to be here and hope that this webinar is finding you all well. The template for the continuous learning plan that was addressed in the governor's executive order is out. You can find that in Sam's and Pam's, Dr. McCormick's weekly message this past week, and also in the FAQ under number 29. The template comes to you in a JOT form, and you do need to fill out that JOT form and then do the template in the Google Doc that's provided. When you open it, it'll force you to make a copy, so everybody won't be typing on top of each other, but you do have access to it. You just have to click that make a copy. And then you'll submit that link through the JOT form back to us so that we can provide you feedback. That link needs to also be on your school's website so that your parents, community, students, and staff have access to it. Once we receive those, no later than April 17th, that is the drop dead deadline for those templates to be returned, you will receive feedback from someone at the Department of Education academic team on your plan. They may ask for some evidence to be submitted, or it may be approved as is. And you will receive that feedback within 2 weeks with a deadline on when to submit additional evidence if necessary. Questions about the JOT form or the template can be addressed to myself or to Melissa Blossom, the Director of School Improvement, as we try to help you navigate through that. The next part we want to address is the memo regarding graduation requirements in response to COVID-19. There was a memo in Sam's and Pam's this past week, and it's number 28 in the FAQ. Items 1 and 2 are not included in the continuous learning plan. Number 2 and 3 should be included in your continuous learning plan. But number 1 addresses that students need to meet all the enrollment course and credit requirements as of March 19th, 2020. So as we look at that memo, it will actually say that a student has to have, based on the credits earned in combination with the classes they were enrolled in on March 19th, they can qualify for graduation. It also addresses that all students, K-12, must meet any virtual or remote learning participation requirements outlined in the continuous learning plan. And number 3 addresses that any additional graduation requirements that are established locally must be met by the students. 2 and 3 are dependent upon local decisions. So your local school boards, your local governing bodies make the decisions about what participation is defined as and what local graduation requirements you have. Number 1, about combination of earned credits and classes that students are enrolled in, is defined in this memo. And number 2 will be reflected in your continuous learning plan. Moving to one of the big questions we have is about grading practices. With students not being able to complete the courses at school and different remote learning plans for different districts, how should students be graded? This is not just a senior issue, it is a K-12 issue. We've had many questions about pass-fail. That is now on our FAQ, number 34, a memo that we worked in conjunction with the Commission for Higher Education to put out about cautioning using pass-fail grades in credit-bearing courses for students in grades 9 through 12. It's not just a senior issue because there are ramifications for the academic honors diploma and technical honors diploma that will impact our students in grades 9, 10, and 11. Those diploma designations require grade point averages, and if students cannot meet those because of pass-fail grades, they will not be eligible for those courses. The NCAA issues with pass-fail, they take a pass as the lowest possible grade, which is a D, which impacts grade point average and could make a student ineligible for play at their secondary institution. The IHSSA also has a rule regarding grades, and students could be found ineligible to play during grades 9, 10, 11 if pass-fail grades are issued. If you choose to use pass-fail, you would need a school board resolution to use that grading system for your students. And I do want to say that for elementary and middle school, where the courses aren't credit bearing and may not have those same ramifications, you may consider using pass-fail or some other competency grading practice that effectively communicates to families whether a student has mastered or not mastered the course. Again, a very detailed memo is on number 34 on the FAQ, and the memo will go out in Sam's and Pam's this coming Friday. Back to graduation, our senior requirements. We have received so many questions. We're going to have a separate FAQ that'll be on the main FAQ, and you can click on the link to see many of the questions we're getting about graduation requirements. Seniors are done when an LEA determines they are done. So even though a combination of courses that they're enrolled in and credits earned qualify a student for graduation, there are other requirements as well, including participating in remote learning, and that participation is defined by the local agency, and any local requirements the agency has for the students. So that allows local control of when seniors are done. We want to talk a minute about credit versus enrollment. The memo says a combination of high school credits earned and courses a student is enrolled in prior to March 19th. Being enrolled would not make a student have the credit, earn the credit. A school can continue to offer remote learning opportunities that allow a student to earn a credit for a course. Being enrolled in the course will allow the student to qualify for graduation, but completing the course and having assigned an acceptable and passing grade will allow them to earn the credit. Classes that are not completed as credit bearing on the transcript will show as incomplete. This will signal to our higher ed institutions, if a student is pursuing post-secondary, that the student was enrolled in the course, had some content, really more than half of the content, but was not able to complete the course. If the student earns a credit and is assigned a grade, that will signal to post-secondary options that the student has completed the course and mastered the necessary material at the grade assigned. Students must hit the 160 mark or the 20 remote instruction days between April 3rd and June 30th in order to complete their school year. So a student is not done just because they have the courses enrolled and credits earned. This flexibility, this memo on flexibility, is only applicable to cohort 2020. So juniors who were planning to graduate early are the cohort of 2021. This flexibility will not apply, and they must meet all of the regular requirements during a regular year in order to graduate. Fifth-year seniors are members of cohort 2019. This flexibility does not apply, and they will have to achieve all of the requirements in code for graduation for their cohort. What does on track to graduate? The memo, the executive order mentions on track to graduate, and that is defined as the ability to complete the requirements with this flexibility by September 30th of 2020. So if a student's combination of credits earned and the courses in which they were enrolled would still leave them short by certain courses or credits, then through summer school and other credit recovery options, the student would still need to enroll and complete the course. The only courses they would not have to complete but would get recognition for would be those courses they were enrolled in as of March 19th. We're throwing around the term credit when we say students are getting credit for the courses they were enrolled in. They would only get a credit if they are assigned a grade and complete the course. Otherwise, what they're getting really is recognition or consideration for the fact that they were enrolled in the course. It doesn't automatically mean a credit. Credit recovery can still be pursued. So if students complete a course through credit recovery, they can enroll in a new course, complete that course, get a grade for that course, and move on to the next course as they would normally in credit recovery. But if they were not enrolled in the course as of March 19th, they do have to complete the course to get credit. So in a traditional school, they would have to have credit and enrollment as of March 19th, or credit and enrollment and any credit after March 19th. So credit in semesters 1 through 7, enrollment in semester 8, and then perhaps additional credits earned after semester 8, summer school or credit recovery, and the combination of all of those equal graduation requirements. Many folks have reached out and said, what if a student in quarter 3 was failing a course, but they were still enrolled in the course? Can they still graduate? Yes, they can, because they have the enrollment as of March 19th. They won't get a credit unless they're in some way able now to show through e-learning or remote learning that they've mastered the material and earn an acceptable grade. But the failing grade in quarter 3 would not disqualify them from graduation as long as they were enrolled in the course as of March 19th. We have had a letter from the military requesting some flexibility with seniors who are enlisted, and Dr. McCormick will address that at this time.
So before I address that, a couple things. One, I want to thank Robin and her team. They have been working nonstop for all of you and trying to get answers. And a lot of time those answers, if they're outside of our wheelhouse, it takes time to get that feedback. So to Robin and her entire team at the department, thank you for all that you're doing. I know you're working hard and it is appreciated, but from the field, I think many of you know that and have expressed that, but just know that they're working hard and we're trying to get you things as timely as we can. Going back to the continuous learning plan before I talk about the military letter, just again for the continuous learning plan, there is a JOT form. Why did we make it in JOT form? We are trying to make it as simplistic as we can for you, and so the expectations are spelled out. Obviously, we can't do it for you, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible. What I don't love is when people say, I'm not going to do it on the JOT form. Not an option. So if you could help us out by doing the JOT form and submitting the JOT form, we've made it as easy as possible. We're just asking you to meet us halfway. We know this time is quite interesting for everybody. We know the capacity at our central office and at the building level is not where it used to be, but we're asking you to fill out the JOT form. We have to track over 700 plans. And so if we have folks that are saying, not gonna be on the JOT form, I'll submit it the way I wanna submit it, it makes it nearly impossible on our end. So I wanna give that waiver to everyone who submits that continuous learning plan and who meets those requirements, but it's not an option not to utilize the form we have created. The other piece of that is we have very few who are saying they're gonna go an entire 180, and that 180 gets a little questionable. We have very few districts. If you are going 180, we still need to know what that looked like. So yes, you will do your calendar report, and yes, you will submit the continuous learning plan. So I'm kind of knowing some of the districts and knowing what's happening. Some of those 180s might look like 160s. We just need to make sure that we are clear on what those plans look like. So when we are asked by the governor's office, we're asked by legislators, what did it look like? We have some indication to tell them what that looked like. We are very expensive. We're over half of the state budget. We run $8 billion. We need to have some accountability to that, and we all understand that, and that we accept it. So we need to have the JOT form. We need to have those calendar reports done on a weekly basis. So the letter to the military. So there was a letter. I appreciate Phil Downs reached out, and I know his principals were asking him about it as well. So I appreciate the field's heads up on this. We did not receive the letter. I guess it came from AASA. It is on our frequently asked question, item number 28. You probably need to take a look at that high school principals, because the Army has issued a letter about those students who are enlisted and talking about their graduation. So if you could please, if you are a high school principal or a superintendent, and you know you have students who are enlisted or getting ready to enlist. We only got it from the branch of the Army, so we've not seen it. Maybe some of you out in the field have. If you have, or share that with us, that'd be great. But please take a read of that. It is very specific on some of those students and the ask of the Army. So as a Army mom, my last plug is go Army beat Navy, but I digest. So we're going to go back to ceremonies. So the ceremonies for graduation, we've had a lot of questions on what does that look like. It looks like what you make it look like. So that is a total local decision. And I know that doesn't help some of you because you're wanting us to answer that question. That ceremony looks like what you want it to look like. I have no crystal ball to tell you, is it smart to postpone it? How should we do this? I don't know. I mean, you know the situation like we know the situation. Obviously, Indiana is, saying the next couple of weeks are going to be tough. And so we have a ways to go yet from what we're hearing, but I have no idea whether June, July, August, what would be better for that type of ceremony, if any of those. And so I know you're up against time, and so many of you are trying to figure out how to do it virtually. So what we have done is we reached out to IU through Steve Balco and Robin's team, and they're trying to come up with a guidance, not to micromanage. We just have had people ask, use it, don't use it, it's completely up to you. As far as IU is putting it together, what it could look like at K-12, based on they've had to do that at their level as well in higher ed. So we appreciate that partnership from IU. Coming from a Boilermaker says a lot, but we are utilizing that information. Thank you, IU, for that. It'll be super, super helpful. But again, we will get it posted when we finalize it. Use it, don't use it, completely up to you. Teacher evaluations. This is one that I know right behind testing and right behind understanding the waiver days. That teacher evaluation piece is huge, and I understand that because your time is ticking. Although time seems to have stand still in a lot of ways, it's still moving in the evaluation world. So we are working with the governor's office and State Board of Ed to provide the most flexibility possible. We suggested, we gave our proposal a couple weeks ago, and we're trying to find a middle with that. And so we're going to have to be patient. I know the governor has to issue an executive order for that because that's going to take statutorily pretty much override per se. So we are working with them. We will hopefully get you guidance. Here's what I will tell you. It is not, based on the conversations I'm hearing, do not plan on teacher evaluations to be canceled. Do not plan on that. Now, when we signaled the EE certification report, the teacher evaluation report was canceled. That's because there's so much tied into it with growth and assessment that given the situation, it nearly was impossible. So the collection piece of it is canceled. However, that doesn't mean your teacher evaluation responsibilities are canceled. Will those look differently? Certainly, those are going to have to look differently. So we are hopefully going to be issuing something this week, and I know all of you who just lost your mind in the last 30 seconds when I say that. We are going to try to give you the most support that we can. We understand what that means and understands that hardship, having been on that other end. I get it, but we're going to try to get you that guidance that you need so you have time to complete what you need to complete. And again, that's for certified folks. Non-certified, we will not be obviously issuing any guidance. There will be an impact for the tag dollars. So the teacher appreciation grant, remember, relies on a certain rating for teachers from the previous year. So there's a domino effect to all this that we will walk you through, but just know that there is money tied to that. Many of you understand that, but that teacher evaluation piece we're still working through. As far as assessments, we've had a ton of people ask us about the iRead3 retest for the retakers of those who are in grade 4 and 5 who would have had that another opportunity to take that test this summer. There will be no iRead3 retakes. So that will be waived for those students. We will provide additional guidance, but that kind of got lumped into this school year's testing. iRead3 was kind of lumped into what has already been waived. The issue becomes ISTEP 10, which is a summer retest, which is going to be huge because you had a lot of sophomores who started taking it, and then for some of you right in the middle of it is when most of this hit. Some of you got it over, not very many of you completed it, but some didn't start. So we understand that's going to be a bigger lift. That would be for next year's juniors who are this year's sophomores, and then the sophomores. And so the domino continues, and then you have some juniors and seniors as well for next school year. So we will be providing guidance on what that means. I can tell you it probably won't happen this summer, but if it's postponed, what does that look like, and how that plays out because of the graduation requirements tied to that. So the ISTEP 10's a little different, but IRE 3, put that one to rest. ISTEP 10, I know for the high school principals who are paying attention, the assessment coordinators and your superintendents and your teachers, that one's still kind of lingering out there, so we will get you some guidance. AP guidance was shared already. Testing dates and times are posted on the College Board website. That's very different because it's at home. So local schools have to work through that and communicate to your students on what that's going to look like. So we've had people say, well, if I shut it down prior to those tests, can I still have that opportunity for those students? Absolutely, absolutely. So how you work that out on that local level is completely up to you. Obviously, we would like to see as much opportunity for students as possible because you have potential dollars saved down the road in higher education, and so it's incredibly important, that experience, but local level. But the AP guidance needs to be shared directly from the school level. So we have shared on our FAQ the posting of the dates and times, and that obviously it's going to be an at-home type of an exam, but from there schools need to go forward and make sure you are communicating to those students who are impacted. Dual credit, hot off the press this morning, I believe, if that's correct. So dual credit, we've been working with CHE, so we appreciate their partnership with this and your patience. For dual credit, here's where we are. Local schools and higher ed have, depending on who your higher ed partner is, have to work through that. But coming from the Commission of Higher Ed today, they said if a school is able to continue learning and meet the requirements of the post-secondary institution, students will still receive the dual credit. So there was a little bit of question on whether those were going to be accepted or not. We have landed as of this morning of, if the school is able to continue the learning as you have defined it, and you meet the requirements of the post-secondary institution who you partner with, then the student can still receive the credit if they earn it, the dual credit if they earn the credit. Students must be assigned a letter. So this is a situation, a letter grade, sorry. This is a situation where you cannot do pass-fail. They have to receive a letter grade to receive that credit. So any questions on dual credit, on AP, on assessment, obviously we're here, the email at the bottom of your screen, we can get you information. I know many of you have been waiting on that, so you can communicate to your students and to their families. Fiscal information. So this is my plea again for all of you. Please, please, please keep track of your expenditures, the costs that are associated with your COVID. So at this point, a lot of your costs are going to be associated with COVID, but you need to keep track of excess costs that wouldn't be already being paid out. So keep track of those excess costs on what you are spending to deal with this pandemic. As far as the CARES Act, which is the COVID Aid Relief Economic Security Act, CARES, that is your title money. So there are $215 million that will be coming Indiana's way. This is not new news. What is new news is, as soon as this webinar is over, it will be posted, your estimated allotted amounts per district. You will see everybody's. I mean, that's just how we typically do it, but you will see that allotment for everyone. It is based on Title I needs. So when you see those dollar amounts that look very different from one district to the other, that is based on the Title I formula. That amount, that estimated allotment, does include your equitable share that goes to your private school partners. So be thoughtful when you look at that number that it does include the equitable share. That has not been carved out. So it's in that number, and all that is explained in a guidance document that you will get along with your estimated allotment. That allotment is, again, estimated. Until we know, we don't know. That's what the best we can give you today, because people were asking, like, what kind of money are we planning on? It's an estimate. We are hopeful that we can get all of that out. Like I said, after this webinar, we will be sending it to superintendents, Title I coordinators, treasurers, CFOs, we will make sure that we send it in multiple avenues so people can start seeing those dollars and start planning. Now, again, on an estimate, you got to be careful with that, but it gives you some indication of where you may land. That money hopefully will be distributed through Title I formula in early summer. We are being very conservative with that, so you may get it before early summer. So what's early summer is what you're saying, and I can hear you. So we're saying sometime in May, hopefully late May at the latest. It was what I'm calling early summer at this point. So just be watching, and we will update you as we get that too. We still are, there are some unknowns from the US Ed, which is understandably so, and I think that's a really fast timeline actually, so we're pretty pleased with that. But again, the allocations are an estimate. It does include your equitable share. You will be getting that today. Hopefully distribution of your final allotment will be in early summer or in May at some point. Robin, you have something to add?
Yeah.
We're going to go back to Robin.
I did want to add that part of the CARES Act states that in order to get your allocation, you must be paying your employees to the greatest extent possible. So if some of you are paying your certified and non-certified staff and bus drivers and all of those people, then you have met that requirement. Others of you may have decided not to pay some of your staff members at this time for various reasons, and you will have to have a justification for not paying people that is beyond a fiscal impact, because right now other monies haven't been shorted. So in order to get this additional CARES Act funding, they are asking that employees are being paid to the greatest extent possible. So some of you may have policies that you need to revisit at this time before we move forward with your application for your CARES allocation.
So that is a biggie, what Robin just shared, as far as to the greatest extent possible, making sure that you are paying your employees. So again, there are laws and different acts coming out from the federal level that covers that as well. So our team is trying to put together some guidance. We're also going to reach out to the School Boards Association, see what guidance is going to be given to school boards, and we just have some work to do with some school attorneys in that area as well. So for some of you who have stopped paying, there are very few, but if stopped paying employees, we need to have some consideration given what those dollar amounts look like, and given the charge from the feds is to, I think their ploy is to keep people employed during this very difficult time that we can, so that we don't create more of a hardship than there already is. But having lived on your end, I know sometimes that's easier said than done, but like I said, most of our districts are doing whatever you can do to keep those bus drivers paid, your non-certified paid, and make sure you're taking care of your employees. So, but that is a part of CARES. It's very clear on the language of that as far as the Title I dollars. So a couple of questions that have been coming in. Operations, as far as, are there currently conversations regarding adjusting the start dates for next school year? No. We haven't started that conversation. I am very cognizant that I think this is going to go on a while, but that conversation hasn't started, and I will be painfully honest with you when it, and if it does. What we're getting more questions about is, what does summer look like? Can we have summer camps? Can we bring our athletes back? Can we? We have no answer to that at this point. So summer is still the big unknown. Right now, your buildings, your facilities, your schools are closed down. If the governor needs to extend that, I'm sure that he will have conversation with our department, and we will talk through that as far as what does that look like with the Department of Health. And there are a lot of people that are going to weigh in on decisions like that other than just our department or other than just the governor's office. So getting people together and collaborating about that will be extremely important. But for summer, what I wouldn't do is go plan a lot of on-site right now. So if you're trying to revamp your summer school, I probably would be heavy in virtual just to be on the safe side. Your summer camps, I would be very cautious about scheduling too much right now that would be on-site. It's just, we don't know, but a lot of that starts early June. Just so you know, we have canceled most of our summer professional development, but I know a lot of people are asking, so we're trying to get you the best answer. There are just a lot of unknowns. But as I'm planning, I would be planning virtually. Anything I would be doing right now, I would be planning virtually. Can schools hold graduation ceremonies outside or in a gym if social distancing rules can be applied? I think a couple things to consider. One, you would have to work with your health department, and I would be very diligent about if you don't get an answer from your local health department, that one I would call the state health department. I know we have some high schools that are super tiny. You may have 10 graduating seniors. I mean, they're very, very small, and if you exclude families and you have just the seniors, I mean, that's different than if you have a district that may have 1,000 graduating seniors in a high school. So I know the dynamics of that aren't always one blanket statement. I would be very cautious about anything that is a gathering, but again, you have your health departments, you have your state health department, depending on when the date of that is, and if you're pushing it back, there are a lot of factors that play into that, but I'm not going to answer a yes, no to that. I'm not the health expert, nor am I going to play one on TV. So if you can, just for that answer, you need to seek out your health department, the state health department, have your ducks in a row of what you're thinking. Are you going to postpone it? What does that look like? What kind of venue it is? But you won't get an answer from our department, whether that's a yes, no. We can provide guidance if we receive it from those medical experts, but to date, we have not received that guidance. Where can I find information about completing the calendar report? So completing the calendar report has gone out a couple different ways, but it's in item 5 on the FAQ. It discusses the waiver information and calendar reporting via a detailed memo, so it pretty much walks you through step by step by step. So if you go to the FAQ, which is right now, it should be, a lot of you are relying heavily on that FAQ. I know it's getting long. We've had that conversation internally. I'm afraid to manipulate it too much, just because some of you know it so well that we're just kind of staying put right now. But item number 5 on the FAQ, there is information in a memo that walks you through it. Maggie Peno and her team and Dr. Keller, they've done a great job of really trying to simplify it the best they can. But obviously, if you get in it and you just cannot figure it out and you're really struggling with it, since you're going to be doing it every week and you're going to be doing it on time every week, we want you to make sure you know what you're doing. So we are happy to assist with that. But FAQ item number 5. Okay, another question is, clarification is needed. Do school districts have to have 20 instructional days between April 1 and June 30th? If we use waiver days, can we have fewer? So the way the EO came out was you have to hit 160, or if you can hit the 20 days between April 1 and June 30, then instructional days, defined how you see fit, then you should be fine. As far as using waiver days for those 20, that's not an option at this point. So you have to either hit the 160, how you deem you hit them, or if you can't hit the 160 because of your timing of your school, then you look at from April 1 to June 30 and hit 20. That instructional day, again, is how you define it. So that is discussable at the local level. You have to work through that, but you are defining how those days look. So whether it's e-learning, remote, packets, whatever. We're hearing a lot of extended learning. We're hearing just a lot of people are doing combinations of things depending on when they can get the devices, if they have devices, what those packets look like, what are parents saying about the packet issue because of the handling of the packets, the quality of packets when you send a packet and say that's your weekly packet or that packet's going to last you 3 days. What does that look like? How many days actually get counted in a packet? So a lot of that is, the quality of that instruction is completely reflective of leadership. And so how you define that is completely up to you with a conversation with your teachers. But again, hit the 160 days or 20 days from April 1 to June 30. If you have still confusion about that, we are happy to talk you through that. If you map it out, like you think you want to do it, we can send you an early signal of we think you got it, we think you don't. We're happy to walk you through that. But before you get too busy on a continuous learning plan, if you are not clear in your mind what you're doing or if it's going to hit either one of those thresholds, I would rather you call us before you spend a ton of time on it and do it incorrectly per se. So we're happy to assist with that. And I know Robin's probably give me the evil eye here because I can imagine those phone calls right now. We will be encouraged to pay will we be encouraged to pay hourly paraprofessionals through the summer with the money if they are usually unpaid during the summer? So I'm assuming we're talking about the Title I CARES. That is a local decision. There's nothing that I'm aware of in the CARES Act that makes you pay during a time of the year where they typically, an employee wouldn't be paid. That money, the CARES money, some of you have a big chunk of money and others of you it's not that significant. So that money's completely up to you on how that money should be spent. Now, if I'm sitting in your chairs, I would be very cognizant of state revenue doesn't look great. I mean, that's the reality of it. Not sure of the unknowns to move forward. So before I go spending that money as kind of extra money, I would be very cautious on immediate needs, short-term needs, and then long-term needs. I would have a very careful discussion. You know your finances better than I do, but I know there are some districts that this is going to get interesting because your finances. But you need to be very cautious in stretching those dollars and when you expend those dollars. So I wouldn't think of them as just something, a bunch of extra. Although right now it is money to address the COVID-19. You do have a long runway, and I know it's out in the guidance, the time frame to spend that, and I want to say 2022. So you have a long runway to expenditure of that money. So it doesn't say you have to pay people through the summer, but if you choose to, because you're doing remediation or you're trying to do some catch-up things based on the scenario we just went through, that's completely up to you. Academics, any guidance on summer school? Right now with our summer school, it says, is the state looking at increasing the appropriations for the funding from 80 to 100%? Can additional title monies be used to pay summer school? Those additional title monies under CARES, hopefully you'll get it in time, but yes, they can be used for how you see fit. If you think summer school is the best use of those monies, then you need to have a conversation and have that reflective in your plan. Do I realistically see an increase in appropriations for summer school? That would be great, but as a realist, given where the state's at with the revenues and everything that's happening with the fiscal impact, the negative fiscal impact on the state, I'm not probably holding my breath that the state's going to give us extra money for summer school. So they understand the summer school probably is going to look different. They understand the need to keep those students and that learning piece. So it's not, the people I have talked to understand that there are concerns. But I also know, too, the revenue is a huge concern. So I would not plan on that. If we get extra monies, that's great, but I would not plan on that given that you are getting a chunk of money from CARES, from the feds, and given where we are as a state, I would just plan on what was typically allotted and your CARES money and how you see that fitting in. So I'm not hearing any conversation about an increase to summer school funds. When will guidance be shared concerning our cohort seniors, 5th, 6th, et cetera, 5th year, 6 years, concerning the GQE requirements or pathways for alternative schools? Robin, do we have an answer to that?
I think we'll get some guidance out shortly for from assessment and accountability. Part of that depends on what happens with summer and fall schedules and calendars.
So guidance coming soon. Mm-hmm. Okay, so guidance coming soon on that one. I know many of you are waiting on that answer. It's a small population of students, but we are very cognizant you need an answer. So guidance coming soon is your answer to that. Regarding seniors who had grades of an F of March 19th or seniors who earn grades of an F after completing the 160 days, how should final grades be posted as incomplete ? So if you are actually issuing grades, so if you are a district, not everybody's doing this, but if you are a high school that is issuing grades, you have e-learning, you're taking grades, you're issuing grades. If they earn an F, they earn an F, and you issue the F. If you are not giving grades and the student fails the course, which, I mean, if you're not taking grades and you're just doing it by enrollment, then an incomplete's an incomplete. So, Robin, would you add anything to that? If you're issuing a grade and they earn F, they earn the F.
Right, they just won't have a credit. So whether it's listed as incomplete or whether it's listed as an F, they will not have a credit for that course. But if they have any other grade and you're giving grades, then they would earn a credit. So if you're giving grades and the grade is an F, then that's how it's transcribed. If you're not giving a grade, then it would, and the student was enrolled, it would be transcribed as incomplete.
That is the tricky part about in trying to incentivize a senior, and we understand that. We've had a lot of questions about that, whether you are a district who has the means to keep that academic piece going or you don't. You still have the other end of that where you are hearing from families of the hardship of e-learning. You're hearing from just the students aren't motivated. We understand that. We also know too, we've had some educators unfortunately who are ill, and so that plays into this conversation. There are a lot of factors playing into that. That piece, that question about grading, you really don't want us in the middle of that. I mean, really, as a local high school, local district, you need to make those hard decisions as far as what does this look like. Our goal is obviously if a student earns a credit is to get them as many credits as they can get. But given the situation, that's hard on some of our districts. So that piece of it though, whether you're giving incompletes, whether you're actually issuing letter grades to credit-bearing courses, that is completely up to you and how that looks like. We would encourage you to be careful of those grading practices. This is not a time where you want a straight A student to start receiving C's because of an internet access issue, because of tight timelines, because of the weight of e-learning, that if you've not ran e-learning and you overshoot that load, that can be real. I've lived that at the local district about 6 years ago, and that was legit. So there are times where you need to be cautious, and our educators are good about that, but having the conversation of being fair during this time, but that doesn't mean that you just let a kid, if you are issuing grades, not do a thing and still give them an A. That's not what we're after here. So just having that conversation at the local level, it needs to continue. I would encourage you to, administrators to teachers, make sure that conversation is alive and crystal clear on those expectations. Has the date of submission for the school improvement plan been determined, or is it going to remain the same?
We have been discussing changing that date. That is something that's statutory and would require work with the governor's office and state board to make that change. With the way that this year has played out, it is entirely likely that your school improvement plan for the coming year will look very similar to your school improvement plan from last year, because you won't have had the opportunity to achieve the goals you set forth in your school improvement plan from last year, and you will not have new data. So you'll be using the same data for your school improvement plan this year that you had from last year, and most likely working with the same goals. So it's entirely likely that you could complete that school improvement plan really before the deadline, let alone after. But we are having discussion about those deadlines and dates. I did have something I wanted to add about federal funding. I'm over here getting hot off the press from Nathan Williamson from Title, who wanted to make sure that we mentioned that the waiver was approved with an additional year to spend your federal funds, and the 15% carryover limitation was removed.
And this isn't CARES, correct? So
no,
clarify
this isn't
what you're
CARES.
talking about.
Yep, this is the waiver for your regular Title funds, your regular federal funds. We got a waiver to get an additional year to spend those dollars, so you don't have to hurry up and spend them and find a way to spend them. You have an additional year, and your 15% carryover limitation was removed. There will also be a memo regarding CARES that will be coming out with your allocation, so if you make sure to read that, it'll have a lot of these things, the details we were talking about as far as paying your people and how it can be spent, etc.
I know we've been in communications with several of our CFOs across the state, and I know they are looking carefully at things as that budget process is going and continues throughout the year, but is picking up. So these topics that if you have a CFO who you know is not on the call or on the webinar, or a superintendent maybe, please help us communicate that one out. That waiver is significant. So for your federal dollars, what Robin just covered, having a waiver for a further expenditure time and extension of that, that's huge. And so thank you to Nathan. We've been waiting on that word. So good job, team, on that one as far as getting that waiver put in and making sure our local districts have the benefit of that. So we will continue to ask for any waivers that we can, but that's good news for our districts. We do have a question about I Read 3. So I Read 3, again, people say, is it canceled? Yes. I Read 3 is canceled for this school year. So that means no third grader will take I Read 3 this school year for 1920. No third grader will take it. The question became retesters. So if there were no third graders who took it, there are no third graders who can retake it. So the only retesters would have been last year's third grade, which would be our current fourth grade last year, and maybe some small group of current fifth graders. So under what we have received at this point, the current fourth graders and current fifth graders who would have been retaking, remember third grade didn't take it, so you're just talking fourth and fifth graders, those students would be waived. Now we're going to get clarification from our director of assessment, and we'll make sure that the CTCs are aligned to that information. If I am incorrect, we will make sure to get this corrected for you. But what I understand today is that I Read 3 retest for fourth and fifth graders who would have been our retesters, that is being waived. And what does that mean? We will get you some further guidance. And that's the way I have it today. If some reason our CTCs or someone was told differently, we will make sure we have clarification on that. I want to make sure we're clear on that. And I know you have a little bit of time to prepare, but you don't. So we will make sure that that is crystal clear to our corporation test coordinators. So I appreciate that clarification on that question. The next one, how should we document attendance in our student information systems, our SIS? That is a local decision. So how you handle attendance, you do not want me in the middle of that mess. So that is a local decision. You need to make sure that if we're still getting questions on attendance, you really need to work with your district or your school leadership to come up with a plan. That looks very different from district to district. The expectations of participation, how you are taking attendance, it just looks very different. That is a local decision. Can schools require more credits than state credit requirements for cohort 2020 during the pandemic? Yes, yes. So there are students now at the end of semester 7, some even earlier than that, who probably hit that credit requirement, but locally they require more, and so yes, you can continue to offer credits and earn credits at the local level. So that is completely up to you. If you are going beyond the state requirements and credits, yes, you can continue to do that. Robin, am I missing something on that?
I think there is local requirements that can be met if they were in place prior to March 19th.
So no change in that?
Nope.
Okay, so as far as we know, no change. If someone is hearing something or you're reading something that we've put out that causes you pause, please email again. But yeah, you can go above and beyond if the local credits are beyond the requirements. If a senior takes an incomplete, will they still earn academic or technical honors if they were on track for 319?
Yes, if a student was on track to get an academic or honors diploma prior to 319, they are able to still earn that designation, even if they get an incomplete, if the school's not offering the opportunity to complete the course, get a grade, take the test, etc. Some students will not be able to even participate in the AP test if they don't have any way of taking that test virtually via not having Wi-Fi or a device. So those things can be waived by the school. In the FAQ, the graduation FAQ that will be embedded into the main FAQ later today, specifics on academic and technical honors will be laid out. However, as a general rule, if they were on track to earn those designations, they still are able to do so if they were enrolled in the appropriate courses.
Obviously, our goal for those students is for those districts who don't have the capacity or capability, no matter how much you're trying right now to figure things out, we don't want those students who are on track for academic honor diploma or technical honor diploma to be put at risk. Given it's something outside of their control and they were on track to do so. So our goal is to honor that as much as possible. If a senior earns an F at the end of the semester of e-learning, then they earn an F and they don't get a credit. Yes. Is that a question? So I think the question is if a student earns an F at the end of the semester, like you're doing e-learning and the student earns an F, they earn the F. Yes, they do not get the credit. That's correct. That's correct.
But they can still graduate. I think the question goes on to say, are they still eligible to graduate because they were enrolled in the course? Yes.
Oh, that's the second part of the question. Sorry.
So even if they get an F and they earn an F and the F, they don't get a credit and the F is transcribed, they'll still graduate because they were enrolled in the course. This is the flexibility that's being offered to our 2020 seniors that hasn't been offered in the past and won't be offered in the future because of this pandemic. So this is the grace that we're giving to seniors for the cohort of 2020.
I believe that concludes our questions. I know some of you had some different questions that we're going to have to answer kind of one-on-one, but we appreciate your participation in this. We will have our next week's webinar on, again, Tuesday, same time, same place, hopefully. So we, again, appreciate everything you're doing. Please stay safe, and we are here to support you. Have a good day.